You're watching this special show that we're doing on the big cement merger. I am Ruchi Bhatia, and before we go any forward, let me tell you what's flashing at the bottom of your screen. Remember, Ambuja Cements just a while ago has come out with a statement on the exchange saying that they're exploring a possibility of a merger with ACC. This is going to create a huge behemoth in the cement sector. Ambuja Cement Board has initiated study to explore the possibility of the merger, and they, of course, both these companies have formed panels with majority independent directors on the merger. To give a 360-degree perspective on the possibility of this merger, we of course have with us a battery of reporters and of course experts from our reporting team, from our research desk, and later in the show we'll also be joined by experts to make sense of what will this really mean for the cement sector. Let me first introduce all the people that we have. Abhinava Das, Ashwin Mohan from our reporting team, and Vivek Iyer is joining in from our research desk. Ashwin, let me come to you first. Break down the deal contours for us.
Well, Ruchi, if you look at this deal, back in 2016, that's when Lafarge Holcim had decided to rejig its Indian operations. And as part of that rejig, Ambuja had picked up a 50% strategic stake in ACC. And that's when the market started talking about a potential and inevitable merger between ACC and Ambuja in India. So if you look at the rationale of this merger, this was an expected line, and the market has digested the fact that at one point of time, the managements of both the companies will take the plunge and decide to merge. What has been announced today is, of course, just an initial exploratory talk. They are, in fact, now officially considering it. So therefore, it can be digested that this merger is in the works. Now, Ruchi, if you were to look at the rationale for this merger, there are two main rationales. One, of course, is the fact that this merger is likely to lead to a lot of cost savings for Lafarge Holcim, which, of course, is the parent. When that global merger happened between Lafarge and Holcim, they saved $1.1 billion in global savings. And one of the major factors that could drive this merger would be the potential cost savings in India. So that's number one. Number two, of course, is also the fact that this will also, the combined entity can also then reduce the gap between it and the market leader, that's Ultratech Cement, which of course has a capacity of about 90 odd million tons. The combined entity of ACC and Ambuja will be hovering around 64-65 million tons. In fact, for more perspective, we are joined by Sumit Banerjee, former MD of ACC. Mr. Banerjee, thanks so much for taking out time and speaking to us. This was clearly an expected lines, and today the boards of both the companies announcing that they are in fact looking at a potential merger. How do you think this will change the dynamics of the Indian cement industry, in which Ultratech today stands proud as a leader?
I think, first of all, this proposed merger, if I may call it, or merger under consideration, it has been talked about for probably last 10 years internally, and part of the 10 years also externally, like you mentioned. So there is of course a lot of cost savings which are possible out of cross-branding and cross-bagging, mainly logistics cost savings, etc., etc. And there is actually no reason why the merger should not take place, excepting for, like all big mergers, there are opportunities as well as challenges. And while the opportunities are there in front of us in terms of cost savings, the challenges are also there in terms of what the Holcim would at that time think of being the differences in the inherent cultures of the two organizations. Also, take for example the dissimilarity of the two brands. One brand is an 80-year-old brand which symbolizes durability, and the other brand is a 30-year-old brand which symbolizes strength. And the big question probably this committee will have to consider is what is to be done with these two brands. Are they going to be merged? Are they going to coexist? If they are going to coexist, then how are they going to compete with each other in markets, or are they going to divide the markets? And lots of these interesting questions will come up. But as far as the structure of the cement market in India is concerned, Ultratech is by far the number one. It doesn't change anything. And multinationals like Lafarge and Holcim or any other multinational companies would actually be only too happy to work as number 2 or number 3 under the overall umbrella of an Indian company, particularly in an industry which is very sensitive from regulatory aspects.
Absolutely, Mr. Banerjee. That's a very, valid point that you've raised. And to get more on that, let me go across to Abhinava. Abhinava, how will this deal improve the operating synergies for the merged entity? Because these are two big brands that we're talking about, ACC and Ambuja. And as Mr. Banerjee has very clearly pointed out, the merged entity has to figure out what they need to do with these two brands.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very difficult challenge for the companies, because if you look at both ACC and Ambuja, they are very, very strong cement brands and which have evolved over the years, and they are as strong as somebody would say an Ultratech brand in terms of brand strength. But yes, over the last few years, Ultratech has taken a huge leap forward in the cement space. I mean, it's there up there with a capacity of around 90 million tons, and we till maybe 3-4 years back, we had Ambuja and ACC also jostling for the top space. But very clearly, Ultratech has taken a lead. But in this case, what would be interesting is the kind of cost benefits that would accrue to Ambuja and ACC, because that would be one of the driving factors for Lafarge Holcim to consider the merger. Because if you look at ACC and Ambuja, the merger talks have been on for the last 5, 6, 8 years. I mean, it's not anything new. I mean, analysts had been factoring this in for the last many years. And this is something which is inevitable given the fact that Holcim anyways was in control of both the companies. And in 2016, they reworked the organizational structure wherein ACC became a subsidiary of Ambuja, and Ambuja in turn was controlled by Lafarge Holcim. So I would want to pose a question to Sumit. Sumit, this is Abhinav here. I don't know whether you remember me. I mean, we used to interact when you were the managing director of ACC. I mean,
right.
You know the company very well. What's the kind of cost synergies that you expect from the merger between the two entities?
See, I mean, we had worked out all these numbers in the past, and as I said, it is being considered for last many years. And I would not like to share those numbers in public domain, mainly because, first of all, those numbers are older, and inflation and changes in market and increased footprint and additional investment in capex and capacities have changed all those numbers around. But suffice it to say that there are huge, it's hundreds of crores at least, if not a couple of thousand crores of savings are possible. Opportunities not to be had in the first year of merger, but over a period of time. But as you said, I think part of all that has been already factored in, and market has been expectantly awaiting an announcement for merger for several years now.
Please stay on with us. We're now going to get some market perspective, and joining us on the phone line is AK Prabhakar, Head of Research at IDBI Capital Markets. Mr. Prabhakar, thanks so much for taking out time and joining us on this special show. What would be the main factor that the markets will be looking out for, sir, now that both the companies are out in the official domain and they have said that they are exploring a merger? So would it be the cost savings, would it be HR sensitivities, would it be branding, or would it be the merger ratios? What would be the single most important factor that perhaps would keep the markets curious come the next time the markets open, that's on Monday morning?
Good evening. I think the cost saving is the important aspect of this merger. Now already this was long talked about, and now if that is going to be the reality, then it is number two, and they have a lot of synergies. Advertisement expenses also will come down, and other costs also will come down, which is margin accretive. So I think going forward, already ACC saw some up move in the last few days. And now I think ACC can ACC and Ambuja together can lead the cement pack. Now already cement stocks are rallying, and now this synergy will give ACC Ambuja some more inputs to rally.
Absolutely, the stocks have been doing well. The stocks, in fact, even Ambuja stock did exceptionally well in trade today. But let me come to you, Vivek. It's certainly a behemoth that we're talking about that's in the making. How are brokerages really reacting to this? Because this has been talked about for a very long time. But what are the numbers that the brokerages are working with?
Well, first let me take you through, how important this deal is. Remember, both ACC and Ambuja are part of India's Nifty 50. So if you're looking at it, among the three cement companies that we have in the Nifty, Ultratech, of course, being the top one, ACC and Ambuja are both there. Now, most of the brokerages, most of the analysts I spoke to are saying that, the company that will be left after the merger is most likely going to be Ambuja. Now remember, of course, our guests have spoken about synergy benefits, spoken about saving on logistics costs, and these are some things that are very, very important. But of course, it all boils down to the fact that, the merger ratio should be equal and favorable to both of the shareholders of the company, which is when they will actually get the final nod. So now, I did a back of the envelope calculation, and if you're looking at it on today's current market price, if you're looking at it, one share of ACC would fetch you around 6.7 shares of Ambuja, and the market in the last couple of days has actually been pricing this in, given the fact that street buzz was quite strong and the fact that this is going to be something that happens quite quickly. Remember, ACC and Ambuja came out with their results last week, and even then there were indications and market voices were buzzing around the fact that there is going to be some sort of an announcement on the merger. Another thing to keep in mind is the fact that GST will soon become a reality, and if you're looking at cement companies, they are going to be major beneficiaries of GST. So it makes sense for a major like Lafarge Holcim to actually go ahead and consolidate their Indian entities so that they can get the added benefit of synergy that come in once GST also kicks in.
Right. In fact, that's a very important point that you're talking about. 6.6 is the swap ratio that we could be working with. But Mr. Banerjee, I know you refrained from talking about all those numbers, but the fact that the board has, for both these companies, they formed a panel with majority independent directors to look into the merger. What are the contours that the independent directors will be looking at to really go ahead and bite the bullet with it?
I think, first of all, this is very much to be kept in mind that this is just currently this is just a proposal in front of the board, and the board is vigorously considering it. And I'm sure large organizations in their boards always have strong processes for considering mergers, etc. And it's only a little bit unusual that the boards of these companies have decided to make the agenda of their committee public. But I think they have done it in the interest of transparency, which is only to be appreciated, because there has been so much talk of this merger in the past many years that they did not want to have any rumors around it. They wanted to share what's going on. But the merger itself, if and when that happens, I'm not getting into that ratio part, but when people talk about consolidation, etc. in the industry, I would only like to submit that this particular merger is not going to amount to any increase in consolidation per se, because neither the government, nor the Competition Commission, nor the market, nor the competitors consider these two entities to be different in the marketplace, and it is assumed that the two entities work together as one entity in the marketplace, and that's what even the Competition Commission would assume as of now. So in terms of pricing power, in terms of consolidation in the marketplace, nothing really changes in an effective manner.
Sumit, this is Abhinav here. If I could come to you. I mean, I remember asking you about the merger quite a few years back when you used to head ACC. Now, I mean, coming back to the timing of the merger, would you say that the merger is more relevant for ACC and Ambuja today than it was 3 years back, given the way Ultratech has raced ahead in the last couple of years?
I would not immediately agree to that. That could be one point of view with some validity, but the timing of the merger to be rationalized on the basis of Ultratech going ahead. I don't think that Holcim or Holcim Lafarge has ever been in a race with Ultratech, and I don't think that kind of a race has any meaning also in terms of bottom line or performance and results of the company. So I would rather like to say that the timing of the merger is to be seen more from the point of view of management focus and management decisiveness, given the kind of changes that have been going on in the Holcim, Lafarge, Holcim itself, and the boards, in global boards of these companies, post Holcim Lafarge merger. So I would rather like to put this in the context of the global, decision-making processes and clarity and priorities in Switzerland and in France.
As far as the cement industry is concerned, size does matter and it gives you a lot of pricing power, and that's something that we have seen across markets. So given the kind of dominance that a merged entity will have in some markets at least, would it give the merged entity much better pricing power?
Look, yes and no. Yes, if you consider that the merger itself will be the timing when this pricing power will suddenly come up in the hands of the combined entity. But my argument will be that such a pricing power already, de facto existed from the time that ACC and Ambuja started operating under the banner of Holcim, and the pricing, etc., were being done. I would not say in coordination, but not at least in competition. And if you had seen the numbers that were crunched by Competition Commission all these days, they had always considered that ACC and Ambuja were one entity. So, there is no harm from the company's point of view also to accept that ACC and Ambuja were one entity, and they also, did their market strategies together. But if it was not so, and if this merger is going to create a new entity as far as the Competition Commission is concerned, then I might say that this merger may also fall foul of Competition Commission's review, and in some markets, this merged entity also suddenly asked today to shed some assets, which may not happen because this was already considered to be part of one entity. Have I made myself clear?
Mr. Banerjee, please stick along with us. Thanks for your patience. I have two questions for Mr. Prabhakar, who's also with us during this breaking news coverage. Mr. Prabhakar, how important is it for Lafarge Holcim as a parent to invest in capacity expansion? Because that is really important over the next 12 to 15 months to protect the market share, A. And B, if you look at the global merger that Lafarge Holcim entered into, back then they had taken the approval of the CCI. So do you think there are any anticipated hurdles from the CCI front when it comes to the ACC Ambuja merger?
For this, we have not worked out. Now, I don't think they will go in for any expansion at this point of time, because previous statement has indicated on that front also. So I think it will be first merger. Then I think they will consider any expansion.
CCI hurdle, the fact that the global merger got the CCI nod, so do you think that will just automatically make it easier for the potential Indian merger also to get an easy nod from the antitrust watchdog?
See, CCCI, it is very difficult to judge. Now, maybe they will say, a few assets have to be shelved off. So let us wait what the regulator says, because anticipating what the regulator will say is difficult at this point of time. When the proposal is kept, they will give the road path.
Team here, one question that I want to ask you. First is, Ambuja right now has been factoring in the fact that it is a holding company of ACC, and there is, of course, a slight holding company discount that is being applied to Ambuja. So, do you think that, this holding company discount will be removed? Another thing, do you think the shareholders of Ambuja, will be happy to actually take in a business like ACC, which is a much lower margin business? In fact, last 4 quarters, if you're looking at the margins of ACC, it's been sub 10. So, do you think the shareholders of Ambuja will be happy with such a deal?
See, now the holding the discount will go up because market will come into parity. And the important thing is, the ACC discount, once the merge entity, the synergy will improve the margin. So I think it is very positive for both the companies going forward. Margin accretive.
Right. While you're saying this is going to be margin accretive, Mr. Prabhakar, help us understand, if an investor goes and is looking to invest based on this news, where should one really park their money? Which are the stocks in the cement sector that you would be betting on post this news?
See, already, cement is slightly expensive, but according to us, ACC, was better, a cheaper stock compared to other in the sector. So the merged entity will be a very good buy at these levels compared to other stocks which have run up in the recent past. So I think that is very important.
Okay, hold your thoughts. I mean, if I could go to you, Sumit. Sumit, tell us about the brands. I mean, Ambuja, ACC, both are very, very strong brands in the marketplace. And you know the brand strength better than many of us. So now my question is, if the merged entity were to choose one brand, which one should it be? Or would you rather say that co-branding is a better option going forward?
I would say co-branding is a better option because that will not cause any initial or at least even temporary loss of premiums in the markets. You see, there are some markets where ACC has a brand premium, there are some markets where Ambuja has a brand premium, and there are some markets where UltraTech has a brand premium, and some markets it may be other local brands. So if the company wants to retain the brand premiums in all the markets where ACC and Ambuja have individually held premiums, and they want to retain those price points advantages, then they would like to go along with the situation of maintaining two brands in the respective markets, and slowly have a strategy of either withdrawing a brand from the markets where it is weaker. Take, for example, the market of Vidarbha, where Ambuja is stronger than ACC. So the strategy should be that Ambuja and ACC, both the brands remain after the merger, but with the decided strategy to slowly withdraw ACC from that market. But logistic costs go down because the bagging can happen in the most proximate plant. And similarly, if the Lucknow market, UP market, ACC is premium or something like that, so Ambuja slowly withdraws. So that is the kind of strategy which will be best to maintain both brands. One cement company having two brands is not unusual in India. And as long as there is a lot of retail prevalence in the Indian cement market, I think that will be the wiser strategy rather than selecting any one of these two brands on the basis of some logic or the other and then killing the other brand and then investing a lot of money in promoting the single brand in the markets where it is weaker.
Right. Mr. Banerjee, I take your point on the rationale behind co-branding, but I'm just going to request you to indulge in a little bit of crystal ball gazing over here. Let's assume the merger goes through, and that would, of course, create a combined entity of about 65 million tons. As my colleague Abhinaba Das was pointing out, UltraTech is pegged at around 90 million tons. Put yourself in the shoes of Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla. What they have done is that they want to reach 100 million tons. That's been the target. But now with ACC and Ambuja slowly becoming a potential close number 2, if this merger were to go through, do you think it would perhaps encourage some more inorganic activity on the part of UltraTech Cement?
No, I think Mr. Mangalam Birla will be happier with larger competitors and a consolidated marketplace rather than having more players. So I think if at all Mr. Birla's growth of UltraTech has inspired ACC and Ambuja to merge, which I don't think so is the case, but then Mr. Mangalam Birla should be happy that the market is getting more solid.
All right, Mr. Banerjee and Mr. Prabhakar, thanks a ton for speaking to us at ET Now and taking time out. And also let me thank my colleagues who've been making a lot of sense and giving a lot of perspective. Abhinaba, Ashwin as well as Vivek for actually helping us understand what will really happen if this merger were to go through. Remember, there's a big cement behemoth that is in the breaking, the big story that we've been following on this special show. Ambuja Cements is exploring a possibility of a merger with ACC, and this of course will happen once the board initiates a study to explore the possibility of a merger, and both these companies have formed a board and with a panel to really figure out how things will work from here on. With that, it's a wrap on this edition. Many thanks for watching. News and updates will of course continue only on ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/ETNow.